Trump just made a move that could completely rewrite the US financial system, and nobody's even talking about it. Now, for the first time in history, the US government is officially endorsing digital assets and stablecoins, and they're pushing banks to play a major role. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just said, quote, "We are going to keep the US the dominant reserve currency in the world, and we will use stablecoins to do that," end quote. But here's where it gets really interesting. They have two ways to do this. One of them is a complete government-controlled system, but the other, it could take us back to a financial model from over 200 years ago, where banks competed to issue their own money. A system that some call chaotic, but others say was one of the greatest golden ages of financial innovation. So the big question is, are we about to see the return of free banking? And if so, what does that mean for you? By the end of this video, you're going to be able to understand exactly what's happening, why the government is pushing this now, and how it could create one of the biggest wealth building opportunities of the decade. Now, real quick, I'm Mark Moss. I've built and exited multiple tech companies. I've invested through several boom and bust cycles, and today I'm a partner at a leading Bitcoin venture fund. I'm an advisor to multiple public tech companies, and I also write the Quantum Wave Investment Report, where I help investors navigate the biggest shifts in tech and money. Now, I make these videos to share the insights that we're using so you can profit from these massive shifts for the rest of the world. In this video, I'm going to break down Trump's secret plan, how his administration is fast-tracking financial changes right now, why this is happening, the real reason why the US is actually trying to embrace crypto, the new banking era that could spark this new age of financial competition, and, like I said, what it means for us. All right, let's go. All right, so let's break this down. Why is the US government suddenly pushing stablecoins? Why now? And more importantly, why is Trump leading the charge on all this? Well, this all became crystal clear just last week when the White House Digital Assets Summit met, and Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent made this huge announcement. He said, quote, "We are going to keep the US the dominant reserve currency in the world, and we'll use stablecoins to do that," end quote. Now, if I just pause right there and think about that, I mean, this is huge. For years, the US government's been either ignoring or actively fighting against cryptocurrencies. But now, they're embracing them. They're embracing stablecoins. So why? Well, partly because they have no other choice. You see, the US dollar is under massive threat, like never before. Inflation's been spiraling out of control. Global trade is shifting away from the dollar. China's aggressively trying to bring other people into its own currency. We have the BRICS nations trying to set up their own currencies, and China's trying to set up their own stablecoin, the ECNY. And they want to do this to bypass US financial sanctions. But while governments might want to get away from the US dollar, in favor of their own currencies, the people around the world, well, they still want dollars. As a matter of fact, they want dollars really bad. So Trump and Bessent, well, they want to get dollars to the people around the world, and they see stablecoins as a way to do this, to weaponize digital dollars, to make sure the dollar remains the world's default currency in the age of crypto. And here's the crazy part. 95% of all stablecoins today are already backed by the US dollar. But currently the problem is, at least for the US banking cartel, the banksters, is that all these stablecoins, they're being issued by private companies like Tether and Circle, not by US banks. And that's what Trump wants to change. Instead of relying on random offshore companies, the US government wants American banks to start issuing their own stablecoins, ones that are fully backed, regulated, and integrated into the banking system. And here's where it gets even crazier. This isn't some far-off proposal. It's already happening, right now. Trump's already started making huge moves behind the scenes to make this a reality. Congress is working on new laws for this. US regulators are already flipping their stance on crypto. And the big banks, they're also preparing for what's coming, because this regime change is happening faster than anyone's expected, all right? Hey, I wanted just to let you know that we've been talking about the first 100 days of the Trump presidency, the first pro-business president, and Elon Musk, the most tech visionary person ever. And we're witnessing right now this crash in the markets. And is it a crash in the markets, or is it a controlled demolition to bring rates down and push asset prices higher? Trump's plans for banks to start issuing their own digital dollars isn't just an idea, like I said, it's already been put into motion. On March 7th, 2025, the White House held its first ever Digital Asset Summit. And this brought together the top crypto leaders, banking executives, and members of Trump's cabinet. And during the live stream portion of the meeting, Trump Secretary Scott Bessent basically dropped it in plain English. He said, quote, "As President Trump has directed, we are going to keep the U.S. the dominant reserve currency in the world, and we will use stablecoins to do that," end quote. Now, that quote should tell you everything you need to know. The U.S. government is now actively embracing digital assets, U.S. dollar stablecoins, not to fight crypto, but to use as a weapon to maintain dollar dominance. Now, just days after the summit ended, then Trump signed an executive order launching what he calls a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a U.S. digital assets stockpile. Now, while that sounds flashy, the real action is actually buried in the details. Treasury Secretary Bessent made it clear this order directs agencies to rework banking and tax rules to favor stablecoins. So, one, the Treasury is going to amend and rescind all previous guidance that hinders digital asset markets. Number two, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency shall create a framework for stablecoin integration into national banks. So that means two massive things. First, it tells us Trump isn't just talking. His team is rewriting the rules like literally in real time as we speak. Second, this all but confirms that banks are about to get the green light to start issuing their own stablecoins. Meanwhile, Congress is already working on the legal framework to make this official. In early 2025, lawmakers introduced two major bills. There was one called the Stable Act and another one called the Genius Act. Now, both of these bills designed to create a federal framework for stablecoins. So the Stable Act, which was in the House, it requires stablecoin issuers to maintain a one-to-one reserves in U.S. Treasuries or cash deposits. Number two, the Genius Act, through the Senate, it grants national banks and financial institutions the authority to issue and settle stablecoins under the OCC oversight. Now, here's the kicker. Trump isn't waiting around for these things, right? He's pushing Congress to get a stablecoin bill on his desk by August. Trump said himself, quote, "We want digital dollars issued by American banks, not foreign companies, and not radical bureaucrats. Congress needs to get this done," end quote. Now, to make this work, the administration needs federal agencies to stop fighting crypto and start working with it. And guess what? That's exactly what's happening. The OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, just approved national banks to start issuing their own stablecoins. The IRS, of course the Internal Revenue Service, they ordered to start rolling back restrictive crypto tax rules to encourage adoption. Bessent even said the Treasury will rescind and amend all previous guidance that hurt the digital asset markets. So think about that. Just a few years ago, regulators were cracking down on crypto at every single opportunity. Now they're rescinding. Now they're rewriting the rules to make stablecoins and digital assets the foundation of the financial system. And this isn't just talk. Major banks are already preparing for what's coming. JP Morgan already launched JPM Coin. It's a tokenized dollar for institutional use. And guess what? It's backed one-to-one by cash reserves, just like the new stablecoin rules would require. Wells Fargo CEO just said they're exploring tokenized deposits, which, let's be honest, is just another way of saying stablecoins. And let's not forget Circle's USDC stablecoin, which is already being integrated into major payment networks, including Visa. So we can see it. It's happening. The banks know what's coming, and now they're all getting into position. And now this leads us to the biggest question. If banks are about to start issuing their own digital dollars, could we be witnessing the return of free banking? Because the last times banks had this much control over issuing money, it led to one of the most explosive periods of financial competition in U.S. history. We might be about to see it happen all over again. Now, for those of you that aren't history buffs like I am, you might be asking, what am I talking about? Well, this whole idea of banks issuing their own money, their own currency, it's not new. The U.S. already tried this before during the free banking era from 1837 to 1863. Now, back then, any bank could issue its own currency. You didn't have to have U.S. dollars. You had hundreds of different banknotes circulating issued by different financial institutions. And here's the key part. Back then, banks had to compete. If a bank issued weak money, people didn't trust it. If they issued strong money, their currency became widely accepted. And this forced banks to actually earn trust. They had to back their money with gold, silver, strong financial reserves, or people just wouldn't use it. They'd go to a competitor's bank instead. And because of this competition, banking services and financial innovation skyrocketed. Now, if we fast forward that to today, guess what? We might be entering free banking 2.0. Except this time, it all happens on blockchains. Now imagine walking into a store and having the option to pay with a JPM coin or a Wells Fargo dollar or a Goldman Sachs stablecoin, just like in the 1800s. Now back then, banks would have had to compete for your trust. The ones offering the most stable, the most secure, the most widely accepted digital money would dominate the market. Scott Bessent said it. He said, quote, "The stablecoin framework will ensure financial institutions can offer dollar-backed digital assets in a regulated, secure manner." Now that means that banks could soon be competing to issue the best digital dollars, and this could change everything. So what happens if banks are allowed to compete again? Well, here's what it could mean for you. Better banking services, because banks would have to offer lower fees, higher interest, faster transactions, just to stay competitive. Stronger and more secure money, because stablecoins would have clear regulations, real asset backing, unlike offshore unregulated stablecoins we see today. Instant global payments. Your money could move anywhere in the world instantly without relying on antiquated SWIFT systems or outdated banking networks. More financial freedom. Instead of being forced into one monetary system, you'd have real choices over where to store your wealth. In short, this could be the biggest transformation in banking since the internet. And so now that we know what's happening, where does this lead us? Like, what's the big picture here? Well, the answer is simple. Like, this could be the biggest transformation of the U.S. financial system and of the U.S. dollar in history. And when everybody thinks the U.S. dollar is dying, it could be cementing its position as the dominant global leader for decades. Now, like I said, the dollar's dominance has been under attack from inflation, from global de-dollarization, from countries like China and Russia pushing their own currencies. But now with stablecoins officially backed by US banks, the dollar could actually come out stronger than ever. Why would that even strengthen the US dollar, you might ask? Well, more global demand for dollars. We have this situation where people all around the world with failing currencies, think Lebanon, Turkey, Argentina, Venezuela, Peru, they all want US dollars, but they can't get them. And the government wants them to have US dollars. And so US stablecoins is a way to do that. Now, right now, over $200 billion in stablecoins are already circulating worldwide. Almost all of them are pegged to the US dollar. And that number is expected to grow at least 10x, maybe even 100x as stablecoins go mainstream. And then banks start competing to offer the best digital dollars. Instead of a single outdated financial system, we could see banks competing for better, faster, and more services. Now, of course, anytime we have competition, we get better products, better services, better prices. And this isn't just about stablecoins. Banks are now able to hold digital assets, think Bitcoin. Now, imagine a future where sending money internationally happens instantly with near zero fees, all powered by US bank-issued stablecoins. This could lock the US dollar in as the global reserve currency for the next era of digital finance, ensuring the US remains at the center of global trade, investment, and banking. But here's the thing. There's another option. One that doesn't require stablecoins. One that doesn't even require banks. You see, Trump and Bessent made it clear that they also support Bitcoin with the executive order and the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Now, there was talk of it being a crypto reserve, but they made it clear this is a Bitcoin reserve, not crypto. They said that Bitcoin is different and will be treated different than anything else. And the thing with Bitcoin is it allows us to be our own banks. So instead of relying on stablecoins and banks to control your money, Bitcoin lets you hold your wealth directly without any middlemen, without any restrictions. And with Bitcoin, we have true financial sovereignty. There's no need to trust a bank-issued stablecoin. You control your own money anywhere in the world. You can move it instantly across borders with or without government approval, and yes, without the bank. And most importantly, though, it's a hedge against inflation. Unlike the dollar, Bitcoin has a fixed supply. There's only going to ever be 21 million Bitcoin. So instead of your money, your dollars, buying less and less goods and services in the future, Bitcoin buys you more goods and services in the future. Let me give you an example. In 2016, the U.S. median home price in the U.S. was $288,400, and it was also 664 Bitcoin. Today, the U.S. median home is $434,700, but it's only 6 Bitcoin. Okay, just as banks start rolling out their own digital dollars, you've got to ask yourself, do you trust them? Or would you rather have your own money, fully under your own control? This is the future of money. The US is moving into a digital dollar era, whether you like it or not, right? And stablecoins could be a massive opportunity for those who see what's coming. But if you believe in real financial sovereignty, if you don't want to rely on banks and corporations to hold your money, then Bitcoin's the alternative. All right, now what's your move? Do you see this as booming new financial revolution for the US dollar, or just another step towards a world where Bitcoin becomes the dominant financial system?